in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 17, we're kind of introduced there to Elijah. And we're not going to have an actual scripture. I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit of his ministry. But one of the very first things that Elijah does in Scripture is he tells the king that there's going to be a drought. And because the children of Israel have turned against God, they've started to worship other idols, and Baal is one of the main ones, is one of the main ones that they're worshiping. And so God's coming out against it. He's going to punish them for defying Him, for going against Him, for worshiping another God, for turning their backs on Him. And He uses Elijah to tell them, you're going to have a famine, you're going to have a drought, there's not going to be any rain for a long period of time. And after that's over with, God tells him, okay, I want you to go away. He tells Elijah, go far away, because He knows that once it stops raining, once the drought starts happening, they're going to get upset. And they're going to try to kill him. So he runs off and he's hiding. And God tells him, I've prepared this woman for you, this widow. And she's going to take care of you. I've told her to take care of you. So I want you to go and find her. When Elijah finds her, he asks for some water. And the lady goes to get him some water. The lady goes to get him some water. And she turns around to go. And as she's going, Elijah says, while you're at it, why don't you bring me something to eat too? Bring me some bread. Well, the lady says, I can't do that. I've got a little bit left, just enough for one more little cake, one more little loaf of bread, a little bit of flour, a little bit of oil, and that's all I've got. Me and my son, we're going to eat that, and then we'll die. There's nothing else. He says, well, before you do that, I want you to make one for me, and then make one for yourself. So she goes into the house, and she does it. Makes a little cake, a little loaf of bread for him. Goes back to make some for her and her son, like he had said. And there's still flour. And there's still oil. And she's able to make more. And God blessed her for taking care of Elijah, for doing what He had told her to do. So that she didn't run out of flour and she didn't run out of oil. Now, I don't know how any of us would feel about that. I've had that experience kind of with my gas tank, making a long trip. And I've known that I've been sitting on E, driving on the way up from Florida around, before you get to Valdosta, there's a long stretch of highway that you go forever. And there's no gas stations, there's no exits, there's nothing. And I was on my way up, and Sister Mavis was coming up with me, and she saw that we were on E, and she starts panicking. What are we going to do? We're about to run out of gas. Do you have a AAA card or anything? No, I don't. I had it was in my little blue Ranger that I had before, and I believe it was an 18-gallon tank that it had. It's sitting on E for I don't know how long. We just keep driving. Finally get to the gas station. And I don't know how it happened, but I filled up. And when I did, I put over 19 gallons into the tank. Now I know that some of you have your 18-gallon tank. I know you have lines and stuff, but I don't think I had a gallon worth of lines. That's a lot of extra gas. I think that during that time, God helped me make it to the next gas station, because there's no way we would have made it otherwise. And for me, that was a huge blessing. But think about this lady. Here she is making a loaf of bread for a stranger. She doesn't know who he is. She has enough for one more loaf. But because she did what Elijah asked her to do, God blesses her. And this is a life and death situation. If they don't have anything to eat, they're dead. That's it. It's over. But God blessed her, because she did as Elijah had asked her to do. Elijah was a powerful, powerful prophet. And we see it throughout his whole ministry. We see after that he goes back. He leaves them. And in chapter 18, he says, look, you've been worshiping Baal. So I have a little competition for you. Why don't we take 450 prophets of Baal? Let's go up on top of Mount Carmel. We're going to stay up there. We're going to build altars, and we're going to put our sacrifices on them. We're going to prepare them the way we want. We're going to pray or chant or sing or whatever we want to do. And whichever God burns the altar, burns the sacrifice first, that is the real God. Everybody talks amongst themselves and they say, that's a pretty good idea. That'll settle this once and for all. So they go up on top of the mountain, and Elijah says, look, there's 450 of y'all. Why don't you pick out which one of the oxen you want, which one of these that you want. You take it, cut it up, prepare it the way you want, put it on your altar, pray to your God, and have Baal consume it with fire. There's more of you. Go ahead. You'll be faster. Go ahead. So they do. They cut it up. They place it on the altar. They start dancing and singing and chanting and screaming out and calling on his name. Baal, take this sacrifice. Baal, this is for you. Well, this goes on for a while. All the way until noon. And in my mind, I kind of think that I guess I like thinking this better, but I kind of think of Elijah a little bit more of a smart aleck than most of the other people in the Bible. Because you see where he comes back to him around noon, and he's like, look, he's not burning it up yet. Maybe he's not listening. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's taking a trip or something. Maybe he's asleep. Why don't you shout louder? Why don't you call on his name louder? He's just asleep. He's just taking a trip. Just go ahead. Wake him up. Well, they start screaming louder and dancing more, and they even start cutting themselves. That's what their traditions told them to do. If they really want their God's approval, they have to cut themselves. So they're cutting themselves, screaming out at the top of their lungs, Baal, hear us! Nothing. It gets closer to evening time, and Elijah's like, okay, y'all look tired. Why don't you sit down, take a little break. Let me try it. Well, they had tore down the altar to God. So he goes over to repair it, to rebuild it. He takes 12 stones to rebuild it. One for each of the tribes of Israel, so that they're all included in the sacrifice. He builds the altar up. He prepares the animal and places the sacrifice on the altar. And then he digs a trench around it. Now, if you're following along in chapter 18, It's kind of hard to know what the measurement is, but basically it comes out to the trench was able to hold 4 gallons of water. And he says, okay, I want you to go and get some water, pour it over the sacrifice that's going to be burnt, and pour it over the altar, and pour it over everything. Soak it all down. I believe they did that 3 times. Is that right? And they filled the whole altar with water. They cover the animal. They cover the sticks. They cover the stones. They even fill up the trench that's around it. And Elijah's like, okay, everyone, come here. Elijah begins to pray. Praying for God to consume the sacrifice. And all of a sudden, a fire comes from heaven. And it doesn't just consume the sacrifice, but it takes the sticks, it takes the stones, it even burns up the water that's all around in the trench. It takes it all. And at that moment, they knew that the Lord was God. Elijah was a powerful, powerful prophet for God. At the end of Elijah's life, he's already appointed Elisha to be his successor, to take his place. And God sends him off. He says, Elijah, I want you to go to Gilgal. So they go. Elisha follows them. They get there. And Elijah says, okay, Elisha, I've been told to go on to Bethel. Why don't you just wait here and I'm going to go on. But Elisha says, I'm not leaving you. As long as you're alive, I'm not leaving you. So they go on. They get there and Elijah says, okay, Elisha, I've been told to go on to the Jordan River. So why don't you just wait here? And I'm going to go on. But Elisha says, no, as long as you're alive, I'm going with you. Well, they get to the Jordan River. Elijah takes off his cloak, his coat, his overcoat. He folds it up and he strikes the water of the Jordan River with it. And the waters part. They cross over. Now, all through this trip, that Elisha is being met by people. And they're saying, you know that your master is going to be taken from you soon. You know that your master is going to be taken from you soon. Elisha just says, yeah, I know. Be quiet. They cross the Jordan. They're on the other side. And Elijah says, Elisha, ask anything you want. What do you want me to do for you? This powerful, powerful prophet is asking Elisha what he wants done. Anything his heart desires. And Elijah will give it to him. Elisha could have asked for gold. He could have asked for power. He could have asked for anything. But he says, I want a double portion of your Spirit. When you're gone, I want more. And soon after that the chariot of fire comes and Elijah is taken away. Reading through the story of Elijah, you see that he's no ordinary prophet. I mean, proclaiming there's going to be a drought, telling people that if they'll prepare an altar, his God will burn up the offering that's put there to prove that he's God. Also during his life, the widow's son, he wound up praying and holding it and raising it back from the dead. Elijah was a powerful prophet, one that did mighty and great things for God. And as Elisha, being his successor, he was going to have blessing that Elijah had. I wonder how many of us would have asked for a double portion of what Elijah had. You see, Elijah was powerful, was blessed greatly by God, used mightily by him. But if you were given the option, what do you want? Anything. How many of you would say, I want a double portion of your Spirit? Like I was saying, Elijah was the one that was to be the successor. He was the only successor to Elijah. So the blessing that Elijah had would fall on Elisha, as long as he continued in the steps that God had for him. But see, Elisha wasn't content with that. He said, I want more. I want twice as much. And because Elisha asked for more of God, because he asked to be used more by God, instead of gold, instead of power, instead of land, instead of all those other things, because he asked for that, God blessed him even more. Even more. Elijah did great things. But Elisha was blessed even more. It kind of makes me wonder too about the way that we approach our Christian life. You see, we have those that have gone before us. Great church leaders, great family members. And we look at them and we say, that's a Christian. That's the life that I want to have. But how many of us say, that was a great Christian, great man or woman of God, but I want more? So many times we set our sights so low. And yes, we have great and wonderful people that have come before us. People that you've watched, people that you've grown up watching. See how strong their Christian life and their influence was. See all the great things that they have done. And this isn't anything to belittle them, but is that all you want? Is that all of God that you really want? Are you willing to stop there? The great men of the Bible never stopped. They never stopped wanting more of God. They never stopped wanting to learn more about Him, wanting to draw closer to Him. The moment we stop desiring more of God, the moment we stop wanting to learn more about Him, is the moment that we start to die spiritually. when we become content, when we become satisfied, we begin to die. That's the truth. Each and every day we should strive to learn more about Him. We should strive to be more like Him. And if you ever come to a point where you can say, you know what? I'm good spiritually. You're in danger. You're in danger. I don't care how good you are, how great you are, how much you feel you've been blessed by God, how many wonderful things you have done for Him. If you're not willing to learn more about Him, if you're not willing to draw closer to Him, you're nothing. You're nothing. Read the story of Paul, of Peter, of Elisha, Moses, Abraham, Jacob. And you see men that have strived to be stronger and better for God. No point in their ministries did they ever stop and say, I'm good. Paul's one of the greatest examples. Paul came out and said that if you'll live like I do, you'll make it to heaven. He didn't say that because he had made it. He didn't say that because he was there, because everything was done, because he had learned all he could learn and grown all he could grow. He said it because he was continually growing. He had a passion and a fervor for God that was unmatched. How many of us can say we have that? Or are we setting our sights on people around us? People we know, people from our past, people from history. Continue to grow. Continue to learn. Strive to be more and more like God, and you'll never go wrong. You'll never go wrong. I've never heard one person say, I wish I had stopped learning more about God way back then, because I'd already gotten there. No. But I have heard people that have turned their backs on God and said, I got complacent. I got satisfied. And I stopped. I just wanted to float. Our spiritual life isn't something you can just float with. You either grow or you die. Grow or you die. When is the last time you learned something new about God? When is the last time that He came to you in a way that He has never come to you before? When is the last time that on your own, in your devotions, your time with God, you were challenged? Take that and then think also, when was the last time that you thought or said that was good enough for that? It's good enough for me. When was the last time that you said, my life's good. My spiritual life is where it's supposed to be. None of us are where we're supposed to be. Until we are completely sin-free, until we have been completely removed from any form of temptation, until we have left this earth and gone to heaven, none of us are where we're supposed to be. We'll make mistakes. We'll say or do things wrong. We're constantly growing. Constantly striving to be better. Constantly striving to do more for God. I want a double portion. I want more of God than anyone that has come before me. And I hope that you feel the same. If not, maybe it's time we spend a little extra time on our knees.